the Pathfinder commands in Illustrator. So Illustrator has a Pathfinder panel. I'm going to go to the window menu and Pathfinder. So this Pathfinder panel, typically it actually is grouped with Align and Transform. So you get all of those panels at the same time. But the Pathfinder is very similar to the compound path. It gives us 10 preset operations that help us combine paths in a variety of different ways. Again, the rule, you have to have 2 or more overlapping objects for this to work. So 2 or more, you can't do this with just one, and it makes sense once we start looking at what are available. So there are shape modes, which are basically this top row, and pathfinders, which are the bottom. A lot of people in the design world just say this is the Pathfinder panel. Did you use a Pathfinder command? So we kind of clump it all into just one, saying it's the Pathfinders. So each of the icons here does come up with a tooltip to give you a little bit of information on what happens. And also it tells us if we alt-click, we're going to create a compound shape. So the first one here is Unite. And again, in order for these to work, I have to have my object selected. So I'm going to use my selection tool and just drag to select or touch each one of these circles so that both of them are selected. Now you'll notice that I have my layers up so you can watch what happens to these shapes as I apply these Pathfinder commands, but also make note of what happens to the colors. Okay, both of these have a 6-point black stroke, but one is red, one is orange. All right, so the first one here is Unite, and Unite basically converts these 2 shapes that are overlapping into one. And you can see that when I click on it, I get a path here, and this allows me, then it's one shape. It took one of the colors and it now believes it's just one shape. So that's a nice way that you can merge or combine, or as the tool says, unite. I'm going to do a Control-Z to undo, to step one level back and be where I just started. So now I again have 2 independent shapes. The second one I have here is a minus the front, and this of course will delete the front object, leaving the back, but it deletes that front section. Whatever was overlapping is also deleted. Okay, then we have an intersect, and the intersect basically creates a single shape that's from where the 2 were overlapping, where they intersected. And the last one here for shape modes on the top is to exclude. And so then this one, of course, excludes where the 2 overlapping pieces are. So this actually is a hole. Okay, so those are the shape modes. Now if we look at the bottom row, we have pathfinders. Pathfinders act a little bit differently. I'm going to choose divide here. And if you look in layers, it made a group. If I expand it, you see now I have actually 3 independent shapes. I have one shape, and I'll drag them apart so you can see there's one shape. And I have, if I select my middle shape and my other left side shape. So it's grouped them right now, but you can see that what the intersect did. So I'm going to do Control-Z a couple times here to navigate back to where it's now again 2 independent objects. The trim, okay, does another interesting effect. I'll tell you the top shape modes are the ones that are used most often. We have merge, and you can see, let me do that one again. What's happening here, I still have these 2 independent objects, and a lot of times you use your direct selection tool to directly select one of those, but you can see it kind of similar effects to what we saw going on earlier with some of our options. We have crop, we have outline, and we have minus back, which is the opposite of minus front. Okay, so some of these you're going to use more often than others. What happens when, let's just do this again. What you saw with some of these is that it does create a group, but these things are still independent. They're just grouped. If I were to go up here and click on, say, add, it makes a path, which again is its independent shape. Now if I add the Alt key when I click, so I'm holding down the Alt key and I'm going to click, say, the Unite. Do you see how this now changed? So instead of just a path, it now says compound shape. So what I've done now is I have my independent shapes, but it's a compound shape, just as I had looked at earlier. So it acts as though it's one shape, but I can still manipulate each one independently. Okay? So that's kind of an interesting thing that we can do. Now, when I do that and hold down the Alt key to make a compound shape, my expand button highlights. So this expand button does, like it says, expand compound shape. So look in my layers, I have a compound shape which is made up of these two objects that I can independently move around. You know, I could actually take this one and I could rearrange the shape to what I want it to be with it selected as a compound shape. If I press expand, now it goes to a path. I've expanded it. I no longer can edit independently. Okay, so I also have some options under this list here where I can make compound shape, release compound shape, and expand compound shape. So we're dealing with the compound shapes very similar to how we did under object and compound path and make. So difference here, a compound shape is technically classified as multiple compound paths, two or more paths that are combined in a way where, you know, they act as one. So a compound shape is just multiple compound paths. Do people really classify those separately? Not so much. So it is just kind of up to you. So the benefit of using these tools, obviously, is that you can make some shapes without having to hand draw things. So if I move this up so that my strokes seem to be lined up, something like that, I can select all of these and I could do some fun experiments with this. So I could either break it all apart, I could unite them all, and if I unite them, you're going to see some fun things happening here. If I hold down my Alt key, I can unite them into my compound shape, so you can see how fun that is. So a lot of different fun things that we can do. So those are the Pathfinder commands, which you only are able to access through that Pathfinder panel.